Uh-oh, I see Amma is agog.
I don't know that I realized that was the seating. So like as you said, I was like, oh, what's happening?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. She's gagged. She's gooped. It is almost impossible to believe that the world lost Whitney Houston more than a decade ago. One of the most memorable voices of all time, the most awarded woman singer of her generation, the current record holder for the most consecutive #1 singles, and an icon of song and screen, she was taken far too soon. However, in her too brief time as an artist, she contributed dozens of iconic songs that remain classics for decades to come, and that voice, still untouchable. Whitney is gone, but she will truly never be forgotten. Now, as part of our ongoing Divas series, the Great Pop Culture Debate wants to determine what is the best Whitney Houston song of all time. I asked Siri, where do broken hearts go? And it gave me directions to Taco Bell. Seems legit. I'm your host, Eric Resniak. Please help me welcome my panel for this episode. She can't be every woman. She wishes it was all in her. It's Amma Marfo.
Anything you want done, babe? In this economy?
And please do go ahead and brag. I encourage you. Next, he decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. It's Derek Makita.
If my arguments fail or they succeed, at least I did as I believe.
That's great, Derek, but did they ever take away your dignity? Because I gave mine up a long time ago. And finally, his name is not Susan. It's our very own Gary Jackson.
Oh, hey, Eric. I have been patiently waiting to exhale for this episode.
Sing shoot, 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 shoo-ba-doop, Gary. If you're curious about how we ended up with this top 16, become a Patreon supporter of the podcast, or check out the bonus preview of this episode on your podcast platform of choice, in which we go through the whole bracket up to this point. And don't forget, you can head to greatpopculturedebate.com and find the listener bracket for this episode so you can play along at home. And with that out of the way, let's get right into these debates. First, it's another unanimous victory for ultimate #1 seed I Want to Dance with Somebody, which laid siege to 4-seed Queen of the Night from the Bodyguard soundtrack. And if you're thinking it's shocking that such a banger is going out right away, that is a testament to the overall strength of the songs on this bracket. We said in the first part that our poll takers did an amazing job with this one. The top 32 songs were exactly correct, and the seeds were also pretty much bang on, and we were already making some very difficult decisions. Before I continue, it is important to know that you can find a playlist for all top 32 songs on Spotify, or just go right to our website, greatpopculturedebate.com. Under the bonus section, you'll find playlists. All the Whitney songs are there. I strongly encourage you to listen to them before you listen to this episode. It's going to make your enjoyment much better. Next, the majority of the panel prefers the soulful yearning of 3-seed Saving All My Love for You, but I am accepting the flaws of 2-seed It's Not Right, But It's Okay. Gary, why do we need to be patient and wait a little longer for Saving All My Love? I will show you the receipts in favor of It's Not Right. I'm going to have Gary go first.
Yes. So, again, this is a beautiful song, a beautiful ballad. So some fun facts about it was that it commercially broke through the topping charts in 4 different countries when it was released. It's first single to top Billboard's Hot 100 for her, and it was at the 28th annual Grammys. She won Best Pop Vocal Performance for this single, and it's again certified platinum because everything she touches is gold or platinum. And yeah, so those are a few reasons why this song is beautiful. The tempo of this also is. It really shows her range, and she just takes her time with it. And I think that also is a little different from some of her other previous songs. So this is why this should be moving forward.
I find this song remarkable because it is a song from the perspective of the other woman. It is very rare that you get those types of songs that are not only existing, but embraced by pop culture. And I've literally had conversations with people who did not realize that Saving All My Love for You is a song about a cheating, or I guess a mistress, singing about the married man who she's hooking up with on the side, and like, no, that can't be right. It's a love song. I was like, oh, it's a love song, honey. It's just not the love song that you think it is. But
She had to get back at Susan.
she had to get back at Susan, that house-wrecking tramp, Susan. But I'm here to talk about It's Not Right, But It's Okay, which is actually kind of hilarious that the two songs are up against each other, because in one she's being the other woman, and in the other one she has found out about the other woman, and she's kicking her man to the curb.
That's range. Let me just say, that's range.
It is range, absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit. Whitney has not just vocal range. Obviously, she's an incredible mezzo-soprano, but she also, her songs really cover, in a way that I'm not sure any other artist has done as successfully, basically any aspect of love and heartache. Whitney covered it, and she nailed it. So It's Not Right, But It's Okay, out in 1999. This was kind of part of her comeback, and it was a big hit for her. It was, I believe, Gary said, was this like her 5th best-selling single of all time? Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. My recollection of this, and if you're listening to the playlist and you're like, what is this version of It's Not Right, But It's Okay? It's the actual version of It's Not Right, But It's Okay. Most people, especially most homosexuals, if you're listening to this podcast, are probably more aware of the remix that was everywhere in the summer of 1999. How omnipresent was it? When I was interning at Marvel Comics in the summer of 1999, every goddamn morning when my alarm would go off, It's Not Right, But It's Okay, the remix would be playing every morning, and it would drive me crazy, to the point that I was like sick of this song. Which, like, name a more iconic duo than the summer of 1999 and songs that you got sick of, right? Like, just constantly overplayed. Yeah. But I've gotten some distance from it, and it is a great song, whether it's the remix or the original. It is Whitney, again, kind of finding a song that fits her personal story at the right time, and she delivers it really brilliantly, like towards the end, where she's almost becoming frenetic, but still very much assured in her decision to kick this loser out of her life. I love it. But that being said, it's up against Saving All My Love for You, which, who doesn't matter who the actual character protagonist of the song is a beautiful song. So Amma, where are you on this one?
Again, I'm already starting to see where it's like, what era of Whitney is going to be represented, and there's a sense of wanting to spread that out. But to your point, like, there's just something so beautiful about Saving All My Love for You, that, like, the type of love that it espouses, like, transcends the actual understanding of the song. Like, that's so interesting. Like, for what it's about, you theoretically shouldn't love it, but you can't help but love it. And that's an achievement. That's an achievement. So I'm going to stick with Saving All My Love.
You know you're not supposed to love it, but you just can't stop loving it. Just like that married man. You can't say no to him. And Derek, where are you?
So I'm a homosexual who graduated high school in 1999, so you can imagine how close that song is to me, but I'm still going to vote for Saving All My Love for You.
Okay, so I believe that is 3-1. Saving All My Love for You will advance to round 3. Next, the majority of the panel ain't bragging, because they're the ones who have got the votes to push forward 1 seed I'm Every Woman, but I'm still holding out hope for Where Do Broken Hearts Go, a 4 seed. Derek, explain why Every Woman is still all on you. I will attempt to resuscitate the chances of Broken Hearts. Derek, why don't you go first?
So it's funny that I'm arguing this song, because longtime listeners of the pod may remember that on our Best of Disco Song episode, I argued that the weight that we placed on Chaka Khan's version might have been unfairly tipped by our affinity for Whitney's recording 15 years ago. Eric, you were there on that recording. Gary, you were there on that recording. So here we are, and I'm throwing all my weight behind Whitney's version, and for good reason. It more than holds its own against Chaka's version, and to modern audiences, I would argue that it may actually be the definitive version. It certainly has more chart-topping critical success than the original. I'm a house music fan. I always have been, I always will be, and the combination of Whitney's signature sound and a house hit made for the dance floor, chef's kiss. Charts, number 4 on Billboard Top 100, number 3 on Billboard Mainstream Top 40, number 1 dance club songs, number 1 R&B singles. It is iconic Whitney, and also a loving tribute to her relationship with Chaka Khan, so it gets my vote here.
I'm so easily swayed on this, but I need to support 4 seed Where Do Broken Hearts Go? It is this was the song that gave Whitney her 7th consecutive #1 hit, shattering the record of 6 that were previously held by the Beatles and the Bee Gees. This is from her second album. It is the second ballad released, and it received mixed reviews at the time. And I just have to ask what the hell was going on with those critics who listened to this song and thought, it's all right. Like, this is a beautiful song. It is, I mean, I guess it's a little junior, you could argue. It's something that a teenager would sing, but hello, Whitney Houston was like 22. Like, it was completely age appropriate. And who didn't resonate with this song one way or another, right? It's a gorgeous song. It's beautiful, but it's up against I Am Every Woman, and I completely understand the argument for why women shouldn't advance. I'm going to go to Gary. Where are you on this one?
Yeah, I'm Every Woman. Just going back to what you said, the bridge and just like how it picks up. It is just, and her shout out to Shaka. I think that was also amazing and sweet.
And her daughter, again, in this one is featured at the end because she's in the chorus and you can hear her at the end saying, "That's my girl," which I'm a sucker, and anything with Whitney and Bobby Christina automatically just like hits me right in the heart. Amma, where are you on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving it to I'm Every Woman, to the point about it being yet another Whitney cover that surpasses its original, both in terms of chart topping, but if you're to ask folks of a certain age, like, who is that song by? The answer is Whitney Houston. And it's not often that you don't get the hedging of a cover. And Whitney's done that a number of times, which is so impressive, so improbable. But yeah, I got to give it to I'm Every Woman on this one.
Yeah. Were you going to say something, Derek? I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
I will make a quick pause on this just to say that Whitney was not a songwriter by her own admission. She was a singer. She was a vocal artist. She was not a songwriter. And I think there are very few other artists that I can think of who had the level of success covering other people's songs to then make them her song. Shaka Khan is no slouch. Shaka Khan is a legend. And her original version of this song is awesome. It's fire. And then Whitney Houston just casually walks on up and was like, this is a great song and now it's mine. And I'm not mad at her for that. So I think it's great that we're putting forward Every Woman. I think there are other great 80s ballads by Whitney that are still on this bracket that make me okay with seeing Broken Hearts go wherever Broken Hearts go. And we will move I'm Every Woman on to round 3. Next, an absolutely brutal battle between two of Whitney's iconic ballads, speaking of which, 2-seed The Greatest Love of All off of her debut album, and 3-seed One Moment in Time from the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Gary, explain why Greatest Love of All is still happening to you. Amma, explain why you will never be free if we eliminate Moment in Time here. I'm going to have Amma go first.
So, I love an Olympic theme. Love an Olympic theme. Like, they do such good work. I am one of those people that, like, it's very excited for the Olympics every 2 years, every 4 for being picky because I was a gymnast, and so Summer Olympics are superior to me, but I think the realization, because I was a little young for this one, so the realization that this was an Olympic theme instantly in my heart was just like, all right, well, like, it's the ability to be able to be called upon for that particular task, what that ultimately means in terms of your appeal as an artist, but also the level of skill to pull off something that's going to stay with it for so long. That's a really impressive feat. And again, like, Greatest Love of All is a wonderful, wonderful song, and I really enjoy it, despite the pressure that it put on those of us born in 86 when it came out in 86, a pressure that I'm still living under and handling poorly to this day. But yeah, there's something about, like, the magnitude implied by it being an Olympic theme that makes it impossible to ignore. So for me, that is the choice here.
Great argument. Gary, talk to me about The Greatest Love of All.
Yeah, so going back to what Derek said, like, previously about just the significance of this song, but this is also a cover. It was originally by, is it George Benson? And just going back to what everyone's saying is when she just makes it her own. I think they just changed out. It was The Greatest, and she just Greatest. But this also is a 2-time platinum single. It won the American Music Award. It is the third biggest U.S. hit. When she recorded it, it peaked at number one. And again, knowing vocally how hard the song is, it will always have like that a significant place in my heart, because it's a beast and she killed it.
It's a beast of a song, and I don't know if this is actually factually true, but according to the biopic I Want to Dance with Somebody, this is the song that she was singing when Clive Davis first saw her. Does anyone know if that's actually factually true, or if they're just like, oh, let's do that for the movie? But I can believe it because timeline it would have ended up, and I can the first time I think any of us heard this song, it was an awakening to a type of voice that we hadn't heard before. And we argued about this in part one. I truly do not believe that there is a more evocative, soulful voice in pop music. R&B and gospel and soul are different, but in pop music, nobody comes close. That being said, I want to know where you are on this one, Derek.
I am still with Greatest Love of All. I think what you said about the singularity of her voice, about the unique talent that was there that we have sadly lost, it just makes the value of her contributions to pop music, to music in general, that much more significant. So yeah, it is the Greatest Love of All for me.
I'm going to throw a curveball. I think I might have the Greatest Love of All going all the way on my personal bracket. But Amma's argument, I think, about this being an Olympic song and the fact that it was not on any Whitney album and was still a 3 seed on this poll, it shows her international impact. And while the Greatest Love of All was, in many people's opinions and in mine, probably one of our first exposures to Whitney and her incredible talents, I would argue One Moment in Time was right about where she was starting to peak as a vocalist. This is where it was no longer a kind of ingenue thing. This was Whitney fully in the power of her voice, and that combined with the brass background and the moment that is the Olympics, it is transcendent to me in a way that, and I was struggling with this one to begin with. Let me be very clear. These are two of my all-time favorites. And I think Amma might have swayed me with the argument, like an Olympic theme has its own special power to it. And I would argue this is probably the best Olympic theme that I can think of all of them. So with that being said, I think we have 2 for Greatest Love of All and 2 for One Moment in Time. Is that correct? Amma, you're with One Moment in Time? Yep. Yes. And Gary and Derek are still with Greatest Love of All. Okay, Greatest Love of All is a 2 seed. One Moment in Time is a 3 seed. But Amma, you had me here, and I want I like, for One Moment in Time, I will be free. We're racing with destiny, Amma. We're racing, but we're losing. So we have to move Greatest Love of All forward. But you did a great job, Amma.
Thank you. Also, she was I believe, and I'm welcome to being corrected on this, but I believe it was the first Black artist to have an Olympic theme. I believe that to be true. So
I can believe it. I mean, we're talking about the late 80s, and at that point, MTV was barely playing Black artists, right? Like, she was one of the few that they were allowing on there. So all that said, great arguments, amazing songs. The Greatest Love of All will advance to round 3. Next, the majority of the panel is belting out along with 1 seed I Will Always Love You from the Bodyguard soundtrack, but Derek is holding out for 4 seed I'm Your Baby Tonight. Derek, try to keep Dolly Parton from being fatal to Baby's chances. Amma, hold that long note in favor of I Will Always Love You. I'm going to have Derek go first here.
Yeah. So I'm going to reiterate some things that I said in part 1, which is that it hit number 1 on both the Billboard Top 100 and Billboard's Hot R&B and Hip Hop chart. It is certified platinum. But again, this was a pivotal moment for Whitney because it marked a change in her sound. She realized that she needed to kind of diversify. Otherwise, she was just going to get relegated to like easy listening for the rest of her life. So she made that pivot well. It is still, when you look at that overall time frame of like the late 80s, early 90s, very quintessential Whitney. And it's for that reason that I'm still voting for it. To me, it is more the original Whitney song. Like, in my mind, the legacy of I Will Always Love You is still split between Dolly and Whitney. Dolly acknowledges that Whitney made it her own and it is now like Whitney's song, but Whitney doesn't have to share I'm Your Baby Tonight with anyone. Therefore, to me, it is the more iconic pick, and that's why it gets my vote.
Great argument, Derek. Seriously, I always love it when you guys come with some great ammunition in your belt. Amma, talk to me about I Will Always Love You.
I definitely agree with Derek in the sense of there is a shared legacy for the song I Will Always Love You between Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston, but I would also argue that if you were to ask, like, name a Whitney Houston song, that is, I would put good money that is the one that you will get. Like, she is, maybe the song isn't synonymous with her because it's shared, but she is synonymous with the song. And yeah, there's something really special about that, like, thinking about, this entire bracket plus all the songs that didn't necessarily make it, when you think about this artist, what do you think of? And I think the idea of that song being for a movie soundtrack, that's fairly rare. Like, I think the only other person I can think of who would probably have that is, like, if you had to name a Celine song and someone said My Heart Will Go On, that would be understandable. But the idea that her most famous song was from a film that she was also in, like, that's profoundly special. It just feels too representative of who she is to not move it forward.
Gary, where are you on this one?
My criteria would be just her vocal chops on I Will Always Love You. And so that will advance for me.
I'm also giving it to I Will Always Love You. Derek, I think you've done a really great job pushing I'm Your Baby Tonight to the point where it is. I think it is, I'm not going to use the J word, as I've been pointing out. I use that term far too often on this podcast, but I will say that it is a song, we use the term iconic a lot. This is literally iconic. And as Gary correctly pointed out, Whitney's vocal on this song is, a lot of people try it and ain't nobody getting close to it. It is a masterclass, and it may be a shared credit song, but I don't think that detracts from the cultural omnipresence of this song. It was everywhere. Like, everybody, every human being on the planet within range of a radio knew this song in the mid-90s. And I think the global reach of it just cannot be discounted here. Neither can her voice. So I'm putting it forward. I think that's 3 for I Will Always Love You. And that will advance to the next round. Next, in one of the strangest matchups in this bracket, the panel is evenly split between Whitney's version of the Star Spangled Banner from the Super Bowl in 1991, a 3 seed, and So Emotional, a 2 seed. Gary, explain why you want to see our flag still there in round 3. Derek, I don't know why I like So Emotional. I just do. So you take this argument, and you'll go ahead first, Derek.
I will absolutely concede that her rendition of the national anthem was a moment in pop culture history unlike anything else. It actually endeared her to a wider swath of the American audience who may have never ventured into any of her other genres. That voice, it is unimpeachable. But so emotional. I have always loved this song. It is actually one of my go-to karaoke numbers, and it's got the Drag Race Rose Petals Heard Around the World moment forever attached to it. And that's why it gets my vote. It's personal. It's a powerhouse pop Whitney that just speaks to me at a visceral level, and that's where I'm going to leave it.
If you're listening to this podcast and you have no idea what he's talking about, do yourself a favor, pause this, go YouTube the Sasha Velour versus Shea Coulee RuPaul's Drag Race Season 9 So Emotional Lip Sync. It'll be 4 minutes of your life. You will be so glad you did. We've talked about how Whitney has taken other people's songs and made them hers. I would argue that Sasha Velour took Whitney So Emotional and made it hers. Like, this is Sasha Velour's song now.
Accurate. Yeah.
That being said, I'm going to go to Gary to talk to us about why you love the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah, so I remember we previously just did the Super Bowl episode, and this was up there. I'm not sure, I can't remember if it won or not, but this particular song, when she did it, it was for a charity for vets and their families during the Persian Gulf War. Um, and so it was a 1991 Super Bowl. It was the first musical act to take the national anthem to the top 10 in the United States. And she was also the first act to have it certified platinum. The our national song. Only Whitney could do something like that.
Yeah.
And it was an iconic moment in that tracksuit, and it was just, I think, yeah, it was very patriotic. And again, her rendition is not an easy rendition to do. People have tried, a lot have failed. Fergie, I'm talking to you, but but this song, like, is, again, this is probably synonymous with Whitney as well now. So,
Amma, where are you on this one?
Absolutely with the Star Spangled Banner, and Gary and I have no reason to cape for. Well, let me not speak for Gary. I have no reason to cape for the Star Spangled Banner in any other circumstances. But
hey, man.
but like, again, just the singularity of this moment, combined with the fact that it did happen in Tampa, Florida, where I grew up. It's an unforgettable moment. And as an aside, because we've referenced I Want to Dance with Somebody, the biopic, a couple times, they didn't make her sweaty enough when she was singing. Did anybody else notice that? I was like, she's not sweating enough. It's part of the experience. I don't know why they didn't include that. It's real important. In any case, that is my vote.
I just love that Whitney took this song that nobody knew by an unknown songwriter named Francis Scott Key, and she gave it some exposure. I love that for her. Speaking of which, if there is not a drag queen out there who doesn't do a Francis Frances Scott Key drag and do that around the 4th, you're missing out. But all of this to say, we have never had a rendition of this song that is more iconic than hers. Never. In the intervening 32 years, is my math correct? I didn't go to school for math. 32 years, not one human being. And this song is sung like how many times a year? No one has touched this song. That is legacy, right? And I love the fact that, Gary, you pointed out, like, no other artist has like charted with a version of the Star Spangled effing Banner. But I find myself gravitating towards So Emotional here because that is a Whitney song, right? It is exclusively Whitney's. And I don't want it to be nothing but ballads in this top 16. That's one thing that I'm very concerned about. I think if we're talking about best performance, Whitney performance, it's the Star Spangled Banner. If we're talking about best Whitney song, it's So Emotional. I realize that is threading a needle, but that's how I'm getting away with it here because I agree with everything that has been said thus far. No one has touched it. It is unimpeachable. Amma, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, as the resident pedantic wordsmith of this, I want to appreciate your interpretation of the prompt. However interesting it may make the argument we're about to make. I respect what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm just bullshitting. I'll be very honest with you. But that is why I'm sticking with So Emotional. That this is a Whitney song. This is a Whitney banger, and it is. She grabbed it by the neck, and it is a ferocious version of her, which I love. So with that being said, we're split 2-2. The Star Spangled Banner is a 3 seed. So Emotional is a 2 seed, which means So Emotional would advance to the next round. I see Amma is agog. I
don't know that I realized that was the seeding. So, like, as you said, I was like, oh, what's happening?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. She's gagged. She's gooped. Gary, do you have anything else to add? No, we're good. All right.
All good.
I will say I don't know why they haven't rolled out a Whitney hologram at every Super Bowl and just be like, no one else can touch this song. Whitney hologram, you are a permanent, Star Spangled Banner singer for the rest of time. No one's gonna touch it. Just do it.
But first, bring out actual Roseanne Barr to start things off. and then bring in the Whitney hologram. No, I'm just kidding. Don't bring Roseanne Barr literally anywhere.
No.
Anywhere.
Don't put her in front of a microphone. Why would you?
It's so true. So true. Cheerfully withdrawn. Next, the majority of the panel is certain that one seed, How Will I Know, should advance over Whitney's posthumous collab with Kygo, Higher Love, which is a 4 seed. Derek, talk about How Will I Know. I'm asking you because you know about these things. I will try to bring us a vote for Higher Love, and I'll go ahead and go first here. It's probably not going to win. I don't know if any other of the panelists are going to vote for it, but Higher Love was a shock win in round 1, and I think that I've appreciated it more as I've gone on. We talked about how Whitney has taken cover songs and made them her own. This is another one where it's originally a Steve Winwood song, and it was very popular when it was out originally. But this song, as Amma told us a little while ago, was the 5th consecutive decade hit for Whitney Houston, correct? And that makes it very special. It has also brought Whitney a ton of younger fans who may not have been aware of her. Kids in the Club. It is a completely different genre from her in some ways. And I think it is universal beloved. Like, I was surprised at how many people wrote it in on our poll, even though it was on the poll, which means people really do dig this song. But it's up against How Will I Know? And so before I even go to your argument, I want to just go around. Amma, where are you voting on this one?
This is a hard one because, again, like that fact that I shared from Slate's Hit Parade podcast about this being Whitney's entry into the Billboard charts for the 5th consecutive decade, like, I get emotional every time I think about that. Like, even you, I said it to you, you just said it to me, and I teared up. Like, that's the scale of the impact that she's had. Like, over the course of 5 years, she's managed to be that level of influential. That's such a huge deal. And then I think also about when we talk about the singularity of how talented Whitney was, it was being able to kind of morph into any number of things that were happening around her and kind of fit with the time. And I can see a world where if she were still here, she would choose to do the Kygo collaboration, because this is kind of how, like, what would it look like for her to be able to have the agency to still be here and say, that's a thing that I want to do. And that's something that makes me additionally emotional. But again, it's going up against How Will I Know, a song that shortly after Whitney passed, I was traveling to North Carolina with my grad assistant at the time, and we were both in like deep Whitney mourning, but she was just like singing How Will I Know to herself, to the point where like the flight attendant was about to do the instructions like right in front of her, and she was just like singing to herself. I was like, Cindy, you have to calm down. Like, everybody's about to get instructions, and you are distracting our flight attendant, because she was kind of like giggling at her just because she was like, she just won't stop singing this song. I was like, I know, she's going through it. But yeah, again, like in the aftermath of losing Whitney, like what was one of the songs that like came to mind for her, for me, for so many other people? It was How Will I Know. So this was a very difficult one for me, but I am going to pick How Will I Know. But Higher Love means a lot, and I want to make sure that we voice that. Yeah, agreed. Gary, where are you on this one?
I think I'm with not Higher, sorry. Who almost got How Would I Know? Just because, like, when I think about this song, like, I close my eyes and I'm like, I feel like I'm just like true, like, oh, it's a crush, and just makes me smile. And I see myself in like a field and just twirling and look at the sky and just like in La La Land of just like how happy I am to be with this person, thinking about this person. And so between these two songs, this was the one that takes me somewhere, takes me somewhere, and I like it. So How Would I Know? It's my choice.
Derek, are you sticking with How Will I Know?
I am. I take nothing away from Higher Love in moving How Will I Know forward, because your point about it being important posthumously to Whitney's overall career is very well taken. I'm just thinking like ahead toward future matchups. How Will I Know needs to go up against some of these other, Eric, I will use the J word, juggernauts, because it has a chance against some of these other ones that are coming up. So that's why I'm moving it forward.
And also, I would say, as important as Higher Love was to Whitney's posthumous career, How Will I Know is critically important to Whitney's career, period. It is a cornerstone song. Would she be Whitney Houston without it? I'm not sure she would. It was one of the like 3 breakthroughs that really made her the most awarded woman artist of all time. So I believe that means we are pretty much unanimous in moving forward. How will I know? Lastly, in round 2, speaking of unanimous decisions, the panel has decided that 2 seed I Have Nothing actually has everything over 3 seed Didn't We Almost Have It All. And that is it for the end of round 2, folks. We're going to take a quick break to sing the national anthem. We'll be right back after these messages. And we are back for round 3 of our Best Whitney Houston Song Debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, I want our panelists to share their social media so listeners can run to you online. Amma, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram and YouTube at Amma Marfo. I have a half-hour comedy special called Enjoy Your Nachos that lives on YouTube. Please go watch it. I think it's very funny. And it's a good time.
It's very funny, yeah.
Thank you, Derek.
Excellent. Thank you. And Derek, how can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and newly on Threads at DRKMKT.
No vowels. And Gary, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Gary Music Man J.
Great. And you can find me at Eric Resniak on Twitter and Instagram. That's ERIC, REZ as in zebra, S as in snake, N as in Nancy, YAK. Or just message at Great Pop Culture Debate on Insta or at GPCD on Mastodon. Now, with that being said, let's move on to round 3 before Sissy Houston comes in and reads us for filth. Our Elite 8, we're going to go around the horn. Matchup 1, I Want to Dance with Somebody, a 1 seed versus Saving All My Love for You, a 3 seed. I'd like to start with Amma. Where are you on this one?
I Want to Dance with Somebody. I currently own 2 Whitney Houston shirts. I used to own 3, and the third one said, I want to dance with somebody. I don't know where it is now, so if anyone's seen it, please let me know. But it enshrined my choice.
All right. I respect that logic. Derek, where are you on this one?
It is I Want to Dance with Somebody, and I will get into it at length when it moves on.
Ooh, okay. That is bold. Gary, where are you?
I Want to Dance with Somebody, for sure.
I think it is a clean sweep for I Want to Dance with Somebody, and Saving All My Love for You, we've talked about it at length. Beautiful vocal, astonishing that a song about a homewrecker is beloved by the nation. And it was sung by like a 22-year-old. But it has had its run, and we are breaking up with it, and it needs to go find a man of its own. So I Want to Dance with Somebody will advance into the final 4. Next, it's I'm Every Woman, a 1 seed versus The Greatest Love of All, a 2 seed. Woo! I'm going to go backwards on this one. Gary, where are you?
You're killing me, Smalls. Ugh.
I know.
Jesus. Okay, say it one more time. I just got like shocked. I'm like, oh.
Nope, you're good. It's I'm Every Woman, which is a 1 seed, versus Greatest Love of All, a 2 seed. Both of these are covers, by the way.
They are. Oh. Greatest Love of All.
Okay. Do you have a reason for it, or?
Again, it's because the vocal chop that it takes. It took her to sing that. Yeah, I think out of the 2 songs, oh, this is so hard. I think vocal chops is going to be my criteria for this one.
Okay. Derek, which one are you?
I think I'm with Gary. It's Greatest Love of All.
Amma.
Oh, gosh. My stomach hurts. You
can do it. You can do it.
Oh, my gosh. I'm Every Woman is feeling like the right choice. I can't really articulate the reason, but it is feeling right at the moment.
So here's where I am on this one. I think it's interesting that I'm Every Woman is a 1 seed and The Greatest Love of All is a 2 seed. They are both covers, so in that way they're both equal. But in terms of which song do I think is more emblematic of Whitney's overall career and had the biggest role in her success, I give it to Greatest Love of All, but that's partially because I'm Every Woman was already when she had ascended stardom, right? She was cruising at that point. Greatest Love of All was an opening salvo. Right or wrong, I still am going to give that some extra props for this. Her vocals on both of them are very good, but I agree with Gary in the argument that the vocal chops in Greatest Love of All have more intricacies, and there's more restraint. Whereas I'm Every Woman is her just belting. And I love it. I could listen to Whitney Houston belt every day, every week. But I think that Greatest Love of All it's delicate, and I love the message of it. Although they both have great messages. So I think that's 3 for Greatest Love of All, 1 for I'm Every Woman. I'm sorry, Amma.
There's no bad choice here. And again, like, it was a difficult choice, so no permanent damage done.
Okay, great. So we will advance Greatest Love of All to the final 4. Next, I Will Always Love You versus So Emotional. I'm going to go in the middle of the pack with Derek. Where are you on this one?
Jesus. So emotional. I'm so emotional. It's so emotional. Yes.
Or the Linda Richmond version. I'm verklempt.
Verklempt. I can't.
Yeah. Gary, where are you on this one?
I Will Always Love You for sure.
Okay. Amma, I Will Always Love You versus So Emotional. It's basically the same story.
Yeah, I'm giving it to I Will Always Love You.
I'm also going with I Will Always Love You here. And So Emotional is great. It is one of... do we have any upbeats in there right now? I Want to Dance with Somebody is still in here, so that's good. So Emotional is fire. It is a track that and like the bridge, we've talked about this before, but her bridges are so good. And that part in the end where she's like, baby, like you could see her like kicking across the stage and her little leg warmers. And I love it. It's infectious. It's literally infectious. But it's not literally infectious. It's figuratively infectious, but it's literally figuratively infectious. But I Will Always Love You, for all of the shared credit argument we've already had, is another, like, it is emblematic of a huge part of Whitney's career, which is movie star, but also a singer who is a movie star. And it's inescapable. It's almost like a density of its own. So we're 3 for I Will Always Love You versus 1 for So Emotional. I Will Always Love You advances to the final 4. And finally, in round 3, it's How Will I Know, a 1 seed versus I Have Nothing. I'm going to start back at the top of the order with Amma.
So this is a difficult one, so I'm going to use a bit of trivia to justify my choice. So during the press tour that Whitney Houston and Brandy did for the television Cinderella that they did, Brandy talks to Whitney about how, like, that little lick at the end of How Will I Know, she was like, that's when I knew I wanted to be a singer. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because we've talked a lot about Whitney being singular, and she is, but I think there's also something to be said about who she inspired and who we have as a result of her. So having that documented and just being like, we don't have Brandy without Whitney, like, that's a really powerful thing. And it was that song that got us there. So for those reasons, while both are strong, I'm picking How Will I Know.
Derek.
I am also picking How Will I Know. It's more iconic Whitney, in my opinion. It's the beginning of her pop diva ascension. It's the 3rd single from her self-titled first album. And fun fact, the song almost went to Janet Jackson in 1984. But she and her team passed on it because they felt it was, quote, too weak. So as a result, we got this absolute bop from Whitney on her first album, cementing it forever as part of her pop culture legacy. That's it. How Will I Know?
That's fascinating. I had no idea. And it's, but we need to also say here, just as a sidebar, Janet's Control album, front to back, nothing but bangers.
100%.
It is a 10-10 album, peerless. Gary Jackson, where are you on this one?
I Have Nothing. 1 is my final choice, but 2, that she is pouring it all out there. And going back to what we said earlier, just where she was in that moment, it's just like, that's one of those songs. She's like on her knees, basically saying like, if I don't have you, I have nothing. Like that, yeah. And it's a vocal chops.
both of these actually have really strong vocals. For an upbeat pop song, How Will I Know has some really, like, she tears into that song.
If you can find or listen to like the isolated vocals from it, oh my god, it's stunning.
It's incredible. That voice, we've said it, and she's called The Voice, right? That was her nickname, was The Voice. And for a reason. I think both of these songs really exemplify it, right? Which album was I Have Nothing off of, by the way? Was it off of album 2 or was it... No, it was Bodyguard, right? Bodyguard. These are two very different songs in that one's an upbeat and one's a ballad. And I actually think these are probably two of her best examples from each of those types of genres. That point in I Have Nothing where she's shifting into the key change, it's like, this is such a stupid comparison. But you ever watch anime and they go Super Saiyan and they like become like a ball of fire or whatever? Like Whitney Houston goes Super Saiyan in I Have Nothing and she just takes them out. It's so goddamn good. But she also does the same thing in How Will I Know at the end. Because again, there is that key change that comes in. And that one to me, like when I was listening to the playlist, get ready for this. In the only term that comes to this, and it's probably not, it's not right, but it's okay, is that key change in How Will I Know is orgasmic. It is just joy. It just shoots out of her. And so I mean, it's joy and it's pain, and in this one I'm choosing joy. And so they're both incredible songs. This could be a final 2 matchup, these two right here, but I'm giving it to How Will I Know, also in part because it balances out our final 4. It's 2 bangers versus 2 ballads, and I think they're the best 4 of the group. So I believe we're 3 for How Will I Know, 1 for I Have Nothing, meaning How Will I Know will continue to the final 4. And with that, folks, we have our final 4. We're going to take a quick break so we can turn a pumpkin into a coach for Brandy. We'll be right back after these messages. And we are back with the final 4 of our best Whitney Houston song debate. At this point in the show, I always like to take a step back and take a look at the final 4, see if it's where I thought we would be. And I think this is the correct final 4. We have 3 1 seeds, 1 2 seed, 2 ballads, 2 bangers. We're going to start off with I Want to Dance with Somebody, a 1 seed, versus The Greatest Love of All, a 2 seed. I'm going to start at the back of the order with Gary Jackson, I Want to Dance with Somebody versus Greatest Love of All. Where are you going?
Oh, I'm sticking to my guns here. Greatest Love of All.
Okay. All right. And we're probably going to need to discuss that in a second, so get your argument ready.
Yeah.
Derek, where are you?
We haven't even talked about I Want to Dance with Somebody yet, so nope. It gets my vote. If I have to argue it, I'll argue it, but she's ready to argue.
Okay, she's ready to throw down. Amma, where are you?
I Want to Dance with Somebody versus Greatest Love of All.
Yep.
And again, we managed to have 2 ballads, 2 bangers, but they're not going up against each other, which is really difficult.
Correct.
Because you're putting 2 very different things opposite each other.
Why make it easy?
Yeah, just a easy breezy, beautiful final 4. I mean, I think for all the reasons that I've argued previously, I Will Always Love You kind of has to come down for this one.
That's the next matchup. It's I Want to Dance with Somebody versus Greatest Love of All. I Want to Dance with
Somebody, Greatest Love of All. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we've been able to go up to this point without talking about I Want to Dance with Somebody it feels like a given, and you don't have to discuss it. So that's interesting. That's notable. So I am going to push it through so we can have a conversation.
It is the ultimate number 1 seed. So that was the one that got the most votes from all of our poll voters. And so right now, Gary, I want you to talk to me why you think Greatest Love of All should advance here. Is it the vocal chops?
So, yeah. So the vocal chops, but also just the lyrics of the song, going back to what we were previously talking about in part 1 of just is her being very hopeful for herself, and like obviously talking about Bobby Christine, and I think when I listen to that song, like it's something that pulls me to that type of place. It's calming, is reassuring, and then on top of, again, just like the lyrics and just the effort that it takes to sing that song, but the way she did it, she made it look so easy to do, which it's not. But yeah, so I think for those reasons, we should move Greatest Love of All forward.
I have a question. Don't you want to dance? Say you want to dance. Don't you want to dance? No, in all seriousness, Derek, talk to me about I Want to Dance with Somebody. Why that should advance here.
So here's the thing. This song has sailed through to the finals, not because it was simply against weak songs, because it wasn't. It sailed through because it is so freaking iconic. Whitney. This song could be no one else's. It is dance pop perfection. It won her Best Female Vocal Performance at the 88 Grammys. We have stated on several of these arguments, oh, it's certified platinum. Well, guess what, folks? This is not just certified platinum. This is 6 times certified platinum. It was a massive hit, both at home and internationally. In fact, it is so Whitney that it literally is the title of her 2022 biopic. Out of the 4 of us, I am the only one who picked this song as the final victor, but I'm proudly throw all of my love and weight behind this song. When it comes on, you want to sing. You want to dance. It just makes you happy AF. It is a pivotal moment in Whitney's career. Enjoy alone or enjoy in a crowd where everyone will immediately belt it out like white folks having a journey moment. It is just that good.
Derek did briefly note that this was his pick for the final win of the whole thing. All 4 of our final picks are the final 4. We each had a different pick for the final win, and every one of them made it, which is never.
No.
I don't think we've ever had on this podcast every panelist having a different pick, number one. And if we have, I don't think they've all made it to the end. I'll tell you that, because I've had some Bobo picks that get kicked out in like round 1.
Everyone's a winner, baby. That's no lie.
Exactly right. I think all of those arguments are great. Listen, Greatest Love of All has had a terrific run, and it is so important to Whitney. It's important to point out that I Want to Dance with Somebody is not from her first album. It's from her second album, but it's the lead single from her second album. So Whitney had already kind of planted her flag, right? She was our quote-unquote pop princess, which I know was a term that she really did not care for, and she didn't like that mold. But she was. And then she came out with this one like 2 years later. Can you imagine, by the way, today's pop artists putting out this type of music with the cadence that she did? Incredible. And it was like, okay, you liked me before. How you like me now? And she just blew it up. So for that reason, I give it to I Want to Dance with Somebody here. I'm sorry, Gary. You're good? You're good with it? All right. So I Want to Dance with Somebody gets 3 votes to advance to the finals. Next up, it's I Will Always Love You versus How Will I Know, both 1 seeds. Ugh. And I'm going to start at actually, Gary, I'm going to start with you. Nope, Derek, I'm going to start with you in the middle of this time. Derek, your vote first.
I Will Always Love You.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amma.
I Will Always Love You. My stomach hurts. Oof.
Gary.
I Will Always Love You.
How Will I Know is my pick for the ultimate winner, and I am willing to lay my sword down here because I to me, it is my favorite. Everything I just said about I Want to Dance with Somebody is true. How Will I Know is my personal pick for upbeat Whitney song. I just think it is so perfect. It builds. It is just this trumpet of this incredible voice by this incredible artist, just selling it and really living in that moment. I'm doing a terrible job at this argument. But How Will I Know? It for whatever reason, that's the song that I gravitate towards more. But if we're talking about the most iconic Whitney song between these two, it has to be I Will Always Love You, even though it's not technically a Whitney song. So that means a clean sweep. Our final 2 is I Want to Dance with Somebody versus I Will Always Love You. I'm going to start with Amma. Where are you going here?
Oh, boy.
God, seriously.
It really is just like the song we identify with Whitney versus the song a movie studio identified with Whitney. And that movie could have just as easily been called I Will Always Love You, and that wouldn't have been a bad choice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it does feel odd to give the best Whitney song to a cover, but again, I do also genuinely believe that if you were to say, like, name a Whitney Houston song, like if we were Steve Harvey Family Feuding, or really any stage of Family Feud, Richard Dawson was also great. If it was like we asked 100 studio audience members, name one, you're getting I Will Always Love You. You just are. Like, that's, yeah.
Or I Want to Dance with Somebody. I think those are the two
those
top
would be
answers.
the top two answers on the board, but I believe that I Will Always Love You would fall in the one spot.
So is that your pick?
Yeah.
Is that your vote?
And my stomach still hurts, yes.
Is it the better song?
I don't know.
She
I don't
doesn't know. Want me to come back to
If
you?
you could.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll come back to you. Derek, where are you on this one?
I'm still I Want to Dance with Somebody, and it simply is because if I'm pairing back and saying, okay, which is the more iconic Whitney song? Is it the cover or the song that could be nobody else but Whitney? It's I Want to Dance with Somebody. And just the joy behind it. And like, again, like the pathos of being out on a dance floor and like everybody belting it because everyone knows the words to this song. Yeah, it's I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Gary.
I think for me, to just go into the video and like put it all together, like her sitting planted and belting this song, I Will Always Love You is my choice. But the reason behind it is, again, just the vocals behind it. I think that this is also a song that everyone knows and everyone can sing it. And everyone does, you know.
Well, they tried.
They tried. Good effort. But yeah, I think when I think of Whitney, I think this song comes to mind right away for me. And again, the fact that it wasn't original and she made it hers. And it went with an iconic movie that she was in and she acted her ass off in, plus the vocal, like, it's all together. She put it all together. And I think that's why I Will Always Love You is my choice.
One quick point about the song. It actually wasn't the movie exec. It was Kevin Costner himself is the one who brought this to Clive Davis, because Clive Davis saw an early cut of Bodyguard and was like, why is she not singing in this movie? Like, you have Whitney Houston and she's playing a singer. Why is she not singing? And so they put in like a bunch of new numbers, and Kevin Costner brought to him, like, what about this song by Dolly Parton? Wow. So it's kind of crazy that that's how it ended up. But as we pointed out, Whitney herself was never a songwriter. It was people who were bringing songs to her, and she was smart to pick the songs that she did. She picked I Want to Dance with Somebody, and she did pick, ultimately, I Will Love You. I Will Always Love You. Are you sticking with your pick of I Will Always Love You, or I Want to Dance with Somebody?
I'm sticking with I Will Always Love You, because yes, it isn't necessarily her song, but it is the lead single and has become emblematic of her from a movie she was also in, so it has become a Whitney song in a way that is really notable.
Yeah. And I think Gary, you made an interesting point. Like, I can see the video of her sitting in the chair planted, just crooning. And when I try to remember the I Want to Dance with Somebody video, I sometimes confuse it with How Will I Know? Those two, to me, kind of get a little bit mixed in my head. And the Bodyguard it has its own.
You're not mistaking it for anything else.
For anything. And so for that reason, I think I'm okay putting forward I Will Always Love You as the number one Whitney song. It's not the one I would have picked originally, but I think it is the correct choice. And there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best Whitney Houston song is I Will Always Love You. Do you agree Do you think we have nothing relevant to say? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com or find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you can hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. If you really enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to like and rate the episode of the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever platform you listen on. I want to say thank you to my panel. I hope that life treats you kind, and I hope that you find all you dream of. And thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content, and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one, and remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Chaka Khan!